I call the Planning Commission meeting to order. It's Monday, November 7th at 6 o'clock. Do a roll call. Dave?
Here.
Josh?
Here.
Kate?
Here.
John?
Here.
Steve? And Rick are excused. Go to the first item on the agenda is approved minutes for September 6th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. First order of business is City of Prescott Comprehensive Plan Amendment.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Josh Miller again from Cedar Corporation. I was here a couple months ago to talk about this amendment, and we put together some language and just kind of going through the next steps before we would have a public hearing on this. Really, the intent is to address the rerouting of that east bypass route that we had in the 2015 comprehensive plan, and looking at what the Plan Commission sees as a good viable option for a different route, and then any additional changes that are needed subsequent to that mapping, because there's obviously some narrative and some information in the comp plan that should be changed. It's not a lot. When looking at it, I thought maybe there'd be a little bit more, but it's not a ton of language. But the first order of business is anytime you do a comprehensive plan update, you have to adopt a public participation plan. And so you have a public participation plan from 2015, but if you remember in that plan, there's a lot of information as far as doing a survey, doing more informational meetings, and that's really for a full-fledged, full-blown comp plan update. We're just doing one amendment here, so you really don't have to do a lot in your public participation plan. So we have a draft in your packet that includes a list of items. The first is a resolution. That would be what's adopted by the council, but the Exhibit A is really where the meat of the plan is, and it talks about a potential ad hoc committee. That's probably not necessary for something like this. We're just looking at one major change in the comp plan. Community events, community opinion surveys, and open houses. And so all three of those, or all four of those items really are probably not necessary. Now, if you look at the language, we put the word may in there, meaning that you have the option to do those things even if you were to adopt the plan as is. You're not held to those things. You don't have to do those. It's pretty permissive. We include kind of soft language like that intentionally to give you the option. But this could also stand as a public participation plan for any future amendment too, in case you didn't want to amend it or update the plan for future. We just know the way it's worded in the current plan is the city will do these things, and you're not going to. So you do need to amend the public participation plan. So really just kind of getting your input here if you want to see any changes or recommend any changes to the council as part of this process. Like I said, there's two obligations really by the city to do a comprehensive plan amendment. One is a public hearing, so you can't get out of that. We'll be holding that at a certain point later in this process. And two, notifying people that have been asked to be notified about any comprehensive plan amendment. Usually it's an ongoing list, an annual list that people say, yes, I want to be notified of any future amendment. Most communities don't even have a list because people don't really care that much, unfortunately or fortunately, I guess. But if they did, we would have to notify them. And then finally, the last item, I said two, there's actually three, that you have to notify all the adjacent municipalities, the library, the Department of Administration, and so on. Certain entities have to be notified of those changes once it's adopted. So anything else is really, up to you guys as a council or as a plan commission, but ultimately the council, what kind of engagement you want. I know I'm talking to Matt. We'll probably be sending out letters to the affected property owners of this route, just to make sure that they're understand that, at some point if you do subdivide or develop the property, there may be some, limitation to that as far as the city may be able to acquire right of way if they map it officially on their official map. We're working with their staff. We've determined that the only part of the route that is officially mapped is north of 10 between Highway 35 and Highway 10. That's the only part that's actually officially mapped. Anything south of that, the route that we're really talking about, has just been conceptual, and that's been on the comprehensive plan right now, and that's what we're trying to kind of fix. Where do we want it, as a community? So we'll stop there, and then if you have questions or comments on the public participation plan part of it, we can strike through. Just tell me which numbers or whatever. You can say, yeah, since we're not going to do any of this, just take it out, and we can do that, and we can make it a really simple
I don't know if we need an ad hoc committee. Actually, 1, 2, 3. I think the first 3 we don't need.
Yeah. I agree to that.
Even 4, I guess. Biggest thing I think is the public hearing, like you said. I don't know if we need, website doesn't hurt to put information on the website.
Yep.
Hard copy at City Hall, put on our social media. So 1 through 4, I would say no, is only my opinion. And of course 8, 9 we have to do, and then 10 is something that it goes through anyway, correct?
Yep. Yeah, we would inform them of any
I'd say
change.
1 through 4, no. I don't know if anybody else has an opinion.
Well, just being new, can you explain to me why we wouldn't need 1 through 4?
As Josh said earlier, we're not doing a big full-fledged, it's just really this east bypass, whatever you want to call it. So
I know, but do you want public opinion on that or not really?
that's why we'll still have a public hearing.
Okay.
So I think if we do, 5, 6, and 7, and then 8, you notify the interested parties, which would be the landowners may be affected, and then have your public hearing, they would have their input. Does someone on Lake Street really care? Maybe, maybe not. But that's where you'd probably have more of the community events and so forth.
And then that's when we would hear how the public feels about that situation.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry.
Nope, you go ahead.
Yeah, in a public hearing, it's published in the paper, and what we'll do with the city is find out who the property owners are that are, are along this route, and just let them know, saying, the route was here, it's here now, you may or may not be affected, you may or may not care. You have an opportunity to speak at the public hearing to share your thoughts on this, and so those are direct mailings that the city we talked about doing.
So really a public open house and a public hearing are redundant. We kind of get it twice.
Public hearing is they're here and it's
Right,
recorded.
right.
An open house, just you can ask them any questions, wander around, look at all the maps. Josh can explain it.
Yeah, in an open house setting, typically we'd say we're posting it for 2 hours, we're here, staff is available, consultants available. We have some maps you can look at, you can provide, you can fill out some information, provide comments or whatever. It's very informal. There may or may not be a presentation on what's going on, but it's really, people are invited to come in at any time, and we're just here to answer questions and to address concerns or comments. But a public hearing is a formal, you open the hearing, people have a chance to share and be put on the record, and so if they have a comment that they want to be read into the record, that's recorded in the minutes, and then that gets, it's part of the official document.
And we could have maps at that meeting as well.
Correct, yep.
The
Yep.
public hearing.
I think a public hearing is sufficient, personally.
And all the notifications ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Very good. So we'll take out those first 4, and then we'll update that for the council. The next item is really the route, and I included a draft route in your packet. And what we were trying to do is, really make sure that the route encompasses the east side, but gets people to the east, but really works well with the contours of the land. When we start talking about going through like a deep ravine or a coulee area, there's some significant costs to bridges and spans of what we're looking at. In some cases here, it can be 100 feet or wider and deep spans. So providing areas where you can, and I don't know, Matt, if you recall what Greg had for a cost estimate on just the original route that was more direct.
So it was around 11 million, I believe, for just the bridge itself.
For just the bridge, but then having a route that's longer, but less, it was a fraction of that. It was a lot cheaper to do. Roadway at grade is a lot cheaper than having the bridges and stuff. So that was really what we looked at from a mapping standpoint. And we can, I forget how wide this is. It's probably, I think the other map had about a 200-foot wide corridor. So it's, it's not to be exactly mapped. This is just one step in the process for reserving that. In the future, if you wanted to preserve that corridor, you'd have to put it on your official map. And so then that becomes a legal obligation for if someone does subdivide or if someone does want to develop within that corridor, they have to come to the city and say, okay, we can require you to dedicate 50 feet or 100 feet or whatever the corridor width would be, right-of-way width that would be mapped, then the city can require that dedication. This is just the first step in that. The official map would be another process.
And I thought at the last meeting, and I think, John, I think you brought it up too, at first I thought, yeah, go down through that gravel pit to get over there. But I'm thinking there's a lot of roadway that, again, if you look at it, it doesn't serve any, developments per se. I know it keeps them from getting out onto Highway 10, which helps a little bit, but the big concern is get them to, get them north so they can get to where they need to go. So do we really, and I thought you brought up, John, correct me if I'm wrong, we thought we'd just go straight to Highway 10 with this road, and you wouldn't necessarily have to go down through all that ravine and that the wooded area with a road, because I just think that's a lot of road and excavation that costs a lot, and it doesn't serve necessarily any properties. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I think that's what we had originally talked about, was going directly north-south right up to
10.
Highway 10 there. I forget, was maybe there some reasons behind not doing that?
I can think of one that you might have, is I could see DOT saying, no, this is your intersection, but I don't think they can stop us from bringing it out over here. Again, I don't know why we go down through that whole ravine, have to build a bridge down through there just to get to this small area of development, when 10 would work just as well, other than it's a little busier, of course. But that's chief. So that was just me.
Unless there was something about the actual location of that intersection.
I know
at Highway 10, just east of the pit, being that low.
Right, so,
low area.
And that's where you and I thought you brought up where it could come up on that high side over there on the other side of that farm. And this intersection will always be there, that north-south from 29 to 10. That intersection will serve that subdivision there, but do we really need to go down through all that wooded area, build a bridge to get to the other side when you got 10 right there? I don't know what your thoughts are there, anybody else's?
I think if it's feasible to go straight north-south and meet up with 10, I think that makes more sense personally.
So instead of having this east-west jog that kind of
right,
just down to this,
instead of crossing the ravine, just not cross it at all and just go straight from 570th up to Highway 10 straight north, or wherever you can connect.
Right.
Straight north-south.
Wherever DOT would let us come in at. I think I agree.
It'd be like, actually, number 2,
No, I don't think we go that far. We just take this one, and instead of going down through here, where am I at? Yeah, instead of taking this going down through, you just take it straight out.
Here.
Yeah. That's a pretty steep bank right straight ahead, so you maybe go to the right of that farm there and come out a little bit on the higher side, and that's DOT.
Kind of cuts a little half the road.
Well, and that's what I mean, you save a lot of money by not putting that much of that road in, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, you're gonna take some and go straight,
Oh,
but it's a
yeah.
lot cheaper than excavating down a bridge and across and up. I mean, that's just, I think it's simpler, and 10 will do the same thing this road does, other than you gotta get on a busier highway. But at some point, that busier highway will be slower because it'll be part of the city. By the time this goes in, I'm gonna guess there's so much development there, it won't be at 55 or 60, it'll be probably down to 35 or something.
This one.
That's just my,
This is the ravine,
my
basically,
recollection,
from
John.
here.
I said bring it over there, and then John said, why don't we just take it straight north? I thought,
All the way from
yeah,
the
that makes
gravel pit,
sense.
basically right here, to be crossing. But this goes all the way down. Originally, it was coming. This was gonna cross right here. So that's where the $11 million bridge.
Well, that's why they
would
put it
be.
at 35.
So we're talking
So
about just.
that's just, I don't know
from
if you
here,
remember that map, but I
right
thought
here,
we talked about
cutting
that.
out this part of it. That's what we're talking about right now.
So, that's the only thing I see there. It's a lot of road that, and elevation that
Really
costs you
not
money to put that in that bridge. When we go straight to 10 and use,
Right.
basically it's not much different distance-wise. Just my thought.
Okay.
And then, the other thing too, at least on this map I was looking at,
yeah.
I was thinking that road would go right tight to that property line of that subdivision and that farmer's field, because remember, we don't like a lot of driveways on it to begin with. Why would we pull it all the way and have houses along that left side?
Oh,
Does that
so the
make
one
sense?
off of 1242nd, just right tight to that.
Yeah, kind of, yeah,
Just the
just off
backyard
of
of those?
the backyards a little bit, because then you don't have to worry about driveways coming out onto that collector or arterial, whatever we're calling it. You have less driveways hitting that because, you're not gonna put any developable land on that side necessarily.
I think at least for that one, the reason we pushed it over is because that steeper,
Ravine.
that ravine
Yeah,
still.
there's a
is-
ravine
And
there.
I
So
kind
we
of
still
figured
have to
eventually you might
loop
have to
around.
loop around it, but still, if he kept it there
Yeah.
and he still went around the ravine, and maybe
Mhm.
that developer can donate the ravine for something, I don't know. I'd not said it parkland.
Sure.
Well, it's wasteland, really, it's just, they just say, fine, the city can have that whole tip of that
Yeah.
ravine maybe, because it's not gonna serve them anything, and then what probably be used is for water retention for subdivision.
Well, I remember discussing that we don't need to make this completely exact right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
You're just making a corridor.
I mean, that's not
Right, and it isn't a big deal, I just thought I
too
wanna,
far out, but yeah, I agree that it would make,
it'll affect that the people in that subdivision might say, oh, if it's in my backyard, they're gonna have concerns, but,
That's true. I mean, yeah, you might want a little bit, but yeah, if you have a 200-foot wide strip, you can move it. And you
maybe
can
it's a
put
little
trees
buffer and
and-
say, we'll put trees along that side, and then the road still stays kinda in that area. That's just my thought, and again, like you say, John, it's not exact, but, you know, the more exact it can be right now, or at least get it close, the people can complain more now than, well, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't, you know, I'm not trying to hide anything, so, that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
on that route.
All right. So, so there's 2 maps really that are impacted by this. The one is the transportation map, which is 6-2, alternative routes. So we'd be looking to keep that part that's officially mapped north of 10, between 10 and 29. And then we would add this additional route. And the map would have to widen out a little bit, so we'd have to move that. But we'd get rid of those other 2. The next map gets a little more complex with the future land use map. And obviously, we would also have to widen out a little bit and go to the east. But there's just this, we're getting rid of more alternatives that we have in here, recreating this map. Just wondering if you even want to show it. That's not because it's only really affecting, especially now with with the route you guys are proposing now, it really doesn't impact the land uses at all because it's outside the city so far.
Right.
I would say probably just get rid of that route altogether on this map and not try to show it because it doesn't impact.
At this time, right? And then as you
right.
get out there, you would remap it.
Yep.
Yeah, I would just say eliminate
Sounds good.
from Hollister to 10, and at this point, just leave that as is.
Yeah, and even the alternative route from Hollister to 35, the yellow one, I don't think, because you guys aren't planning on keeping that in it.
No, yeah,
At this
get rid
point,
of that
right?
too.
So,
Yeah, for now. I'm thinking someday that people from there going south instead of coming through town might take that too. Yeah, we can take that out.
yeah, that route would no longer align with anything else in the comp plan, so it might be confusing if we just left that in this map, but you can always put it back in if there's another, because you guys are probably 3 years from updating your comp plan again at the latest. And then the last areas, and I apologize, I thought I had more redlined on here. I don't know if one of them did come through, but the first section is just updating under the analysis part of the north and south arterial planning, just talking about map 6-2, and I may have to relook at this again, but adding new development, including manufacturing facilities, a grocery store, food distribution center, and high school have been built in the last 10 years on the north side of the city. There's just a quick update there. And then number 16 on the future land use needs analysis, I had removed commuters at the future intersection of Hollister and a future arterial corridor road. Number 16, it says commercial businesses serving residents and commuters on Hollister Avenue. I just removed a section that referred to the alternative future corridor because it doesn't exist anymore, or won't exist. But really, there wasn't a lot to the changes in the narrative. There wasn't a lot of references other than the mapping, which is fine. And if you can certainly add more, but the mapping is really what a big part of the consistency. The one thing that I apologize, I thought I had it highlighted here, and when you're talking about goals, objectives, and policies and recommendations, and that's really part of what the consistency requirement is. So there may be, and I think I listed it actually in the narrative, or in my staff report, was that, let's see here. The city may want to consider adding some language about how to accomplish reserving that corridor, such as, doing so by updating the city's official map to include it. So that would be allow for the consistency provision. And again, just to explain what the consistency provision is, when a city has zoning, a subdivision, or an official mapping ordinance, or shoreline wetlands, I think it is, it has to be consistent with your comprehensive plan. So any changes to those ordinances should match what's in your comprehensive plan. And it's usually, the consistency thing is usually look at our maps or goals, objectives, and recommendations. And so right now, you have it on your map, which is great, but if you wanted to go to the next step and say, well, we want to make sure that our official map is consistent, you could add a recommendation, and as I had in my narrative, that says, to accomplish preserving this corridor, we would like to see this officially mapped, or would recommend officially mapping this corridor at a future date. So it'd be
I think we should do that.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And again, you're not dialed into the specific layout or width, but it just gives you, if all of a sudden you have a big east and west corridor that you decide to put in your official map, well, that's not consistent. But if you have a north and south, really generally from Hollister to Highway 10, as long as it's connecting those two or in that general area, I think you could meet the consistency requirement.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Another question, do we have to do anything about the fact that, like, say, any subdivisions out there, because it's not just that developer of that chunk of land has to pay for that road. I think, I know I brought it up, is all the development out there should be assessed something, or just set it up so we can assess them all for using that north-south corridor. Or a reasonable amount, I know the city's got to probably pay some portion, because everybody can use it.
You're talking about like an impact fee?
Kind of an impact fee or capital cost fee. I know they call them impact fees, and I know one city they call it capital cost, and so there it's not use it in 7 years, just give it back to them. It's a capital cost that helps pay for future roads that development would use, or turn lanes and so forth. Because, again, we're moving it out of one subdivision who they would have to donate land and pay for a portion of it to another one. Well, the people in that one will probably use it somewhat, just like the people east of that. And so the first subdivision shouldn't pay for all of it. It should maybe, you do the study of, okay, what area would probably use that north-south route. And so that's just a thought on my part.
I think it's a good idea.
Because otherwise the city ends up, the city's gonna have to pay for it because we didn't assess this subdivision or that subdivision, just this one. So they dedicate the land and we put the roads in. Why should we pay all of it when the demand or the impact that's causing it? It's an impact, but it's not, I'm not sure.
I think the realistically hard part about that, of doing some sort of fee, is that we're gonna have X amount of years to use any fees.
That's why it's called a capital. See, again, the one city I worked for, they call it capital cost, and I know there's a road that I don't see it going in the next 50 years because the farmer did a farmland preservation on where it's gotta go through, but the rest, they collect the money, it's not an impact fee, so they're sitting on it. So I don't, Matt, you can explain what the rules are for impact fees and why he's concerned, but I think there's something else, but go ahead.
So there's a Wisconsin provision that we could create, and I can reach out to, I guess is the city north of us, is that what you're?
Might be.
Yeah. I could reach out to them to see how that was established and how they were doing it.
Yeah, so impact fees are, statute says you can do an impact fee if you don't spend them within 7 years of the time you collect them, you gotta reimburse them to the people who paid it. And so this road won't go in 7 years, but yet it will still, these people will somewhat use it. Now, is it $1,000 a lot? That probably pays 50% of it, great, you know what I mean? But I don't think as a taxpayer I wanna pay for the whole road when all those subdivisions cause the impact somewhat, so.
I think it makes sense to assess some type of fee, if that's possible.
Right, yep.
To any new subdivisions that would be potentially using that.
Within whatever, Cedar Corp says.
Do a study on it and see, who you expect.
Within a mile or two of it.
Right.
Yep.
That makes sense.
So I don't know if that's part of this, if that has to be in this master plan or whatever, probably
No.
not.
I do think if we're gonna get to that level of planning, though, we probably should make sure that we do put it in an official map and actually say this is where the road's going to
Yeah,
go.
without a doubt.
Because if we're gonna start charging and collecting for a road, we wanna make sure the actual.
It has to be on the map if
road's
we're gonna
gonna be
collect
on the
for it, I
map.
agree.
Yeah.
So, okay. Just, I brought that up just because.
Well, you're planning for the future, and that
Exactly.
includes the cost of it, so that's good. And then, so lastly, I really don't have anything else as far as the changes to the comp plan, but lastly, just the schedule. So to do a public hearing, it's a class 1 notice, it's a 30-day class 1 notice, so usually your class 1 notice is like 7 days before a meeting. Statutorily, you have to have a 30-day notice for a comprehensive plan public hearing. That would give us a chance to send out notices to the neighbors and, put it in the paper. And I don't know if we'd look at maybe a January one because it would be too late on the December one.
And there's no rush for this necessarily.
No.
So if we had to give them 60 days of the website and such, and then have a public hearing 60 days from now, I don't think that'd be a big deal.
Well, now with these changes, we'll want to be able to map it and get these updated now. Give us a little bit of time to do that. But again, work with staff, get the notice put together. They provide a mailing list and get out to the affected parties. And then the next step would be a public hearing before the Plan Commission. So you'd open up the public hearing, get comments. There would be a resolution adopted by the Plan Commission to recommend that amendment change to the council. And then the council, if they accept it, they would adopt it by ordinance. So then that ordinance gets, like I said, distributed to all the nearby property or the adjacent municipalities and the Department of Administration, the library, and so on. So, and then we update your comp plan with those changes.
I mean, that notice can be with the updated route
Yep.
that we talked about tonight then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, thanks.
Any other questions? Comments? Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you for your
Josh.
time. We'll see you in the next couple months.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a site plan amendment for 1045 Warren Road. That's the property between Dollar General and the daycare. Matt, you want to take that?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, and Todd Olin is the engineer on the project. He's here as well to answer questions. So this was approved back in May of 2022. It's for a 7-unit mini storage building between the Dollar General and the current Learning Center on Orne Road. Developer approached with 2 changes. One, first change is the coating from a 6-foot black vinyl to a 6-foot galvanized steel fence. And then regarding the architecture, what was originally approved was, you can see in the entryway there, they had some raised vaulted ceilings with the signage in there, requesting due to costs to have that removed and just have it a standard flat ceiling all the way through, or roof all the way through. So with that, any questions, Todd's here to answer as well, and discuss, I guess, which, if you want to approve the changes or not.
I guess the question I would have is, reasoning behind switching from the black to the galvanized. Is that just cost?
It is. We're seeing like a 40% increase because of the vinyl coating, the black vinyl coating on the fence. And since our use requires so much fence, it's a big number.
And I would. My opinion is that the black looks a lot nicer. It's a lot less of an eyesore, but if we don't have anything in statute that covers that.
Well, then they got an approved site plan that said they have to put it up, but.
Yeah. I mean, have we ever required that in the past, I guess, would be the question. What's the precedent on it?
Well, so the reasoning, when I talked to, am I forgetting his?
Ben.
Ben, thank you. Was more so the fencing to begin with, since we've had some issues with storage units and people going onto property, just making sure the fence was there. And based on the concept he was doing, with all that, with the white and the black, the idea was, well, could we do a black vinyl coating to match everything? So that was where the original thought process was, in us requiring the black coating. We don't necessarily have anything in our ordinance regarding height and keeping the architecture there, I guess so. I will say it was part of the site plan that was approved, so I guess it's up to you in terms of the fencing and the height both.
You talking about the height of the building, not the
Yeah,
fence?
the height of the building
Yeah.
itself.
I don't really have a strong opinion on the height of the building. The fence, I would have a more.
That's an image eventually, you know, the image black looks nice when you're coming through the city of Prescott. Of course, the black could go to heck just as much as the galvanized, but I don't know, I'm 6 of one, half does the other. Like you are. Kate, your thought?
I don't know, I was just surprised to hear, storage unit was going there. I didn't know that, so.
That was probably right a month or two before you joined us.
No,
maybe.
it was, yeah, it was probably quite a while before that. I guess I do feel like the black looks nicer, but I'm not, I mean, teach their own. For me, it's not a make or break or anything.
Yeah, originally, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go
You
ahead.
should be right there.
Should come up here, please.
Just because you get to be on TV and say hi to your mom.
Thanks. The original site plan we put together was, can you go back to that, Matt? Or if I have a site plan with me, I can go up there.
This one, or?
Yeah. The actual elevation isn't all that different as far as colors and whatnot. The height is basically what we're running into a problem with is, when we put this together, we're using a couple of different, we have an architect, of course. We have a Tracty Building Systems, which does nothing but, their business is to design and put together metal buildings for self-storage like this. And this building in particular is climate control, which is included in their package. Now we're looking through all of the who does what, like physically, who does the door jambs, who does the garage doors, who does the windows, who does everything. So it's remarkable the difference in cost of construction if we just lower that roof line and match the roof, because then Tracty steps in and says, we'll include that. Because it's at the same roof line, that's what we do. If we raise the roof line, then it becomes a completely separate entity. That then you need separate structural, separate architecture, separate everything on it. This does simplify it quite a bit, and you know, being that it's set back from the road that much further, I don't think that's something that you're going to be drawn to as far as, I mean, certainly you'll see a difference if you build this one next to the other one, you'd see a height difference, but really the attractive part of it is the windows and the sign up front that we're not changing. So when we put this package together, we're looking at the colors of the building, and we just, when we were asked what type of fence was it, and it was at this meeting as a matter of fact, what type of fence is it? I said black vinyl coated because it matched the building. So that's really where that came from. At the time, again, we had preliminary pricing on it, and of course, everything is that much more expensive and that much more difficult to get. So we're actually looking at putting this thing in the ground now, and the real numbers, and they're remarkably higher than when you originally planned this out. So that was the motivation behind it. It's not all cost. We put the second elevation together because we just didn't think that, given the value of aesthetics, wasn't really all that big a deal on the roof line. And maybe you disagree, but same is true with the fence. If you really felt strongly about black fence, maybe we put black fence up near the road.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
You know.
I was thinking most of it you can't see.
Right.
Right.
But it wouldn't be that much money to throw a couple of sections and, you know.
Right.
The front
Right.
line one would be
Yeah.
black.
Yeah, or maybe just turn the corner and go back a couple of panels.
Sure. That would.
And the rest of it could
I
be
think that would
galvanized, that
look,
you'll never know it's galvanized is there.
No, I think that would be wise.
Kate, give us your 2 cents, that's yours.
I know, I don't think that would be necessary, I would just keep it all one color. I mean, I guess I don't know what you could see or not see, but
Yeah, and that's, after I looked at the elevation, you know, you look at the top one, you can just see that little bit of black, or even the bottom of that black fence that faces the highway. And that's what we're thinking, if you want an image, you just have what faces the highway, which is the image could be black, and then going down the sides, if it went to galvanized, I guess I wouldn't
Yeah.
care.
I mean,
Boss, what do you think?
Well, I don't care one way or the other.
I was gonna say, like, for me, it's
I'm
not.
good if they want to put a galvanized fence up, I'm good with that.
I was just thinking for image, I'd say we keep it black up front, that what I'd like, and the rest could go galvanized, but that's just my thought.
Cause is that the only spot you're gonna see the fence, is just down that
Right,
side there?
right, pretty much. That's why at first I thought, oh, from the highway, but oh no, it's all behind the building, so don't worry. John?
Yeah, it would just be the homeowners behind this.
Right, they are,
That
yeah.
would see the
Yeah.
fence, really.
Yeah, but we've got a pretty thick,
Brush line.
dense brush, or
Oh,
tree line
there's gonna be
back there.
trees behind the fence as well?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Then I don't think I see any issue.
When I say that, I'm gonna get beat up a little bit on this, putting black against the road, that's the most expensive pieces of that, because it's the gate, it's
The
the
gate, oh, yeah, I'm
mechanicals, it's
sure it
everything
is.
else that goes along with that, and that will face the road, but, so if it were up to us, we would do a consistent galvanized around the site, but if it's, like I said, if it's that,
When you worry about your image as much as we do, don't you?
we do. We also want these to be affordable for your residents.
That's
For
fair.
everybody that has junk that they can't put in their yard,
Yeah.
that is. Man.
There's a benefit too. He already promised me a spot for my little toy car I drive in the summer, by the way.
I make a motion to approve the changes where you can lower the roof line, and if you want to go to galvanized all the way around, I don't have a problem.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second to accept the amendments to the site plan. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is review the 2023 through 2030 capital improvement plan. Matt?
That's what this is for us, right?
Thank you, Bear. So, as we are dealing with the planning document in terms of the capital improvement plan, we want to give the opportunity for the plan commission to weigh in. So I'm going to stick to mainly, there's a lot of items in here, but mainly stick to the more larger capital plans in terms of the streets and the parks. But just to give you an introduction, a CIP or a capital improvement plan is a multi-year plan meant to highlight capital expenditures and accomplish that plan through determining where those financial resources are going to be allocated. Provides long-term planning. There's a document in front of you as well that has the full draft of the plan. It also determines kind of what's available or what projects should occur. We define within this plan any major expense over $10,000 and having a lifespan of 5 years or more as a qualifying item on the plan. And this doesn't mean any of this plan officially approves any project. It just means it sets a roadmap. All these items would still have to go before council, either in a budgeting process or separately per line item. It is a rolling plan, so each year one year rolls off. So 2023 would roll off, 2031 would go on. Grants are not included, however, that does not mean at all whatsoever that the city wouldn't continue to go after grants for projects. It just, again, sets the plan for what we're trying to accomplish as we move forward. And there's two different funding mechanisms within this plan. One is a pay-as-you-go. This is where we utilize property taxes and other revenues to pay for upfront costs and interest to avoid interest costs. And there's the pay-as-you-use, where you use debt financing to pay for improvements. This is generally done on larger projects as a result, more of tax levy limits and to avoid those major tax increases that would happen if you had a large project that you also had to come up with all that revenue to pay for it. Number of benefits to a capital improvement plan. Some of the bigger ones, though, avoid spur-of-the-minute decisions or choices that have to be made. People coming forward saying, we need this. We can point to our plan and say, well, here's our 7-year plan. We don't really have the ability, although that doesn't mean we can't change it again every year, but kind of the bigger one. And also allows us just financially to let everybody see where we're going and ability to plan each year. So as we got into building this plan, it started back in late April, early May, sitting down with department directors, working with our city engineer Cedar Corporation working with Ellers, our financial advisor. So some of the things that weren't included, unfortunately, just due to cost restraints, we didn't include the mill and overlay of Dexter Street. Kinnickinnick and Camel Street reconstruction is a rather large project, so that unfortunately did not make the list. Highway 10 underpass is currently not in this project. Tower Heights Street and Mill and overlay, Court Street Mill and overlay. Right now, we're still working through the wastewater treatment plant, so that's not currently within this plan, although that's something we do want to include in next year, 2024, as we move forward. And then the skate park and the improvements to St. Croix Bluffs Park did not make this list either. And if there are questions, I think just we can raise them as we go, so that way we can answer them. But I'll continue on, but just let me know if you want me to stop and address anything. Just to give you a summary of funding sources and capital projects, that is included in the plan before you. Really two things to point out. First, this first year, we see a $4.19 million in terms of funding sources. That's two reasons. We have $1.7 million going to well number 3 remediation. As you may or may not be aware, we have that one shut down due to higher nitrates right now, so we're working with the DNR to come up with a solution to get that back online through reverse osmosis. And then secondly, we are looking to do the reconstruction of Locust Street in 2023, so those costs are included as well. So that's why we have a rather high year in 2023, and that includes and that continues in 2024 as we are looking to do Elm and Washington Street reconstruction as well in back-to-back years. So that's why those 2 years are higher than you would expect moving forward. Other than that, the big items were streets is our largest expenditure that we're looking forward in future years, followed by parks, although parks really that is as high as it is because in 2025 we're looking at the phase 2 of our reconstruction or remodel, if you will, of the downtown riverfront area. So with that, the street projects that are included, as we just mentioned, Locust Street reconstruction in 2023 from Orange Street to Walter Street, mill and overlay of Orange Street with some storm sewer replacement from Broad Street to Elm Street, Elm and Washington Street reconstruction in 2024, and again, those reconstruction projects are quite a bit higher than when we're just looking at a mill and overlay, so that's why that 2023 and 2024 projects are so expensive. Cherry Street from Broad Street to Elm, Monroe Street, mill and overlay from St. Croix Street to Walnut, and then Linden Road, mill and overlay Glen Ridge to Walnut. Orrin Road, mill and overlay in 2028, that includes the addition of a sidewalk or a path along the side of it from Pearl Street to Dexter Street, and then Court Street from Kinnickinnick to Oak Street as well.
Hey, sorry. When you say mill and overlay, what's that mean that you're doing?
So we're taking off all the asphalt through a milling process, and then they come in and they
Just
repair
redo
the
it.
subsurface.
Okay.
Yep.
I just need to clear that up.
So. And then looking at our water projects, we have the purchase of a generator for well number 4 at $90,000, and then that rather large project of remediation of well 3 through reverse osmosis of $1.7 million. And then in 2028, we just repainted our tower number 2, but in 2028 we'd be scheduling for repainting and the maintenance of tower number 1. So then looking at our parks projects, that first initial project that's coming up in 2023 would be some improvements and repair to Public Square Park. This would be some new fencing around the tennis courts, new basketball hoops, additional parking along Court Street, a proposed budget of $103,000. We do have quite a bit of people now interested in pickleball, so we would see this project would include the addition of 2 to 4 pickleball courts. We would have a 50% cost share with the Pickleball Association who's requesting and working with us as part of that for $35,000 a piece.
This is the park across the street from the middle school?
Yep.
For me, okay. So the city owns that, or I thought the city owns that? I thought it was Lions or something.
With the Lions Park.
Lions Park,
They
okay.
do all the
what they-
improvements on it.
Okay.
And then a couple of different years for Freedom Park improvements. 2023 is more of repair and maintenance, amphitheater concrete repairs, landscaping of grounds, repair of parking lot and walking paths. Actually, that was done this year. Picnic table and trash replacements, or receptacles replacement. Addition of lighting to both the pavilions and the gazebo for a total budget of $60,000. This would be coming from TID. Number 4, and then 2026 would see the addition of what we're trying to do, either a trail or a sidewalk up State Highway 35. Currently working with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to try to include that in their project in 2026. If we could get that, we could potentially lower the cost quite a bit if we could accomplish that 80%, 20% split with Wisconsin DOT. And then Magee Park improvements. So one of the things that we did earlier this year, actually in February of 2022, was approved a concept plan for Magee Park. This include parking lot improvements, the addition of an ADA trail, picnic shelter, bathrooms, a bike rack fixing station. Overall, if we included all of the phases and all the work that's to be done, Cedar Corporation now has an estimate of $1.2 million for everything to be done. So this project doesn't happen unless we get some sort of a grant to fully fund it. However, we are looking at phases in 2024 and 2025, at least accomplishing some of the things to make it more user-friendly in terms of maybe adding the parking lot first and then adding the trail, or maybe adding the trail and then the parking lot, something like that. So at least accomplish something if we're not able to gain a grant.
Funded by grants.
The phases right now, though, so that first phase of 119,000 and that second phase of 184 would actually be real costs that wouldn't be grants. Yeah,
Okay,
just
no,
the
that's
city.
good, yep. Perfect, thank you.
Some other parks projects, then Shane Park, a new sign, rain garden, landscaping, replacing picnic tables and trash receptacles. Sunset Park, putting in a new slide, exploration playground, pavilion, swing, new benches sign. However, this is one of the things Parks Committee is looking at, so some of these might change in future years. However, this is what they're currently at within the plan. And then Great Rivers Park, that's a big question mark. Great Rivers Park eventually is going to have, or Great Rivers Housing Divisions will eventually have around 300 homes. So I know one of the things Plan Commission has done in the past was dedicating that 10 acres that's out there for future park development. So just looking at what potentially we could include there, is it playground, soccer, flag football field. We've heard from the school district that they would like that, if that's an option, to offer more of those sports and activities for kids. Parking lot with bathroom. Currently, this whole park doesn't really develop unless Great River subdivisions continue to develop. So if it were to stop, say, right now and not have any more houses, most likely the park wouldn't develop. But as the subdivisions keep developing, the idea would be then to look at developing this park. So right now in 2027, we have about $310,000 set aside in the capital improvement plan. So just to give you an idea of the debt, so most of the projects are more funded by upfront capital costs. However, the larger projects, especially when it's talking about streets, we're looking at an increase to our debt levy in 2024 to help pay for that. So we go from 517 we go from 435,000 to 517,000 starting in 2024. However, a number of that increase is already currently built into the 2023 budget for this year due to some of the levy restraints and levy allowance that's allowed. So with that, I'll turn it over for questions, comments, looking for a potential motion to approve with any recommended changes to council.
I feel like that was a lot to go over. And just be like, oh yeah, we should just make a decision.
We only get to make a recommendation anyway.
Oh yeah, but.
So you could go to the council if we can make a recommendation and then you had some other thoughts later, you go to the council and say, hey, I just have some opinions and thoughts.
We went over all this at budget,
Oh,
so that's how it came to.
got it. So
To
this
be
is all
where it
stuff
is
that
right
happened
now.
before I was here.
budget workshop.
No, the council did the budget and the council threw it all together and the planning commission is supposed to say, okay, do we agree with that's a good direction to go for the city?
Right.
Council ultimately tells us, jump in a lake, we'll do what we want,
Yeah.
but
Okay, so were we supposed to be at that budget meeting to like hear that? Would that have been good?
you could have. I
We
mean,
could in the future if you'd
Yeah.
like.
so So, and what I'd say, and this is just me saying, what I would say is, it's in your packet what they were gonna do, but he threw a little more detail, and then, of course, we got this tonight.
Right.
You know, if you have questions ahead of time, don't be afraid. If we'd got this sooner, it might help to answer some of your questions, too, is my thought. I just been through the process
And you can
before,
always-
so.
Well,
You
yeah.
can always reach out
Right.
between now and when it
Yeah.
gets council as well.
With staff, you know, Matt or whoever, and then the mayor.
Well,
And
it's
these-
just a concept, I mean, you don't know what you're gonna.
Yeah, this isn't a budget.
2027 comes around,
This will change as the years go on.
Right.
Every year this will.
Change.
So.
Yep.
And so basically,
I'd make a motion to
2023
It's just a
is
roadmap.
Recommend approval.
gonna be written in stone pretty soon,
Right.
when we approve the budget yet this month. And then the remainder of the years can always change as one falls off, if something more important
Comes
comes
up.
forward.
Or grants or funding,
Yeah.
right?
So, that's how that'll work.
I'll make a motion to approve the capital improvement plan.
Second motion to approve, recommend to approve it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to recommend the capital improvement plan to the council. Any discussion on the motion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other business, next meeting is Monday, December 5th at 6 o'clock.
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
I noticed that there's a big building being built down where we already lost enough parking down by, is it Two Rivers, behind the old insurance agency? What's going there?
So Two Rivers is building their two-story deck. As part of that approval process, we required a dumpster enclosure because we get a number of complaints from the condominiums that are by them about seeing those dumpsters. And the idea was as more projects come in that back that river, that will require dumpster enclosures to make that riverfront look nicer, so we won't be able to see them. So that was.
That'd be nice.
But I thought we sold them that land to the south, and they were gonna keep their dumpsters in that building they built to the south. They were gonna put their dumpsters down there. Why are we giving up 2 parking stalls? We already lost how many over there by price right? That's just what I kinda remember. I thought they bought that dumpsters, they're gonna fix that up, and now we're losing 2 more parking spots when we don't have enough downtown to begin with. That's my only question.
So it's actually just one stall that's down there that we're losing, because the other one that's getting, where the ramp is, was already there. And we had about 4 feet where we had to push things, so we just took that and widened it right there so that you could get access, so they could get access to the dumpster enclosure. The issue that we had is overall that site, unlike pretty much all the other buildings downtown, has no off-street access. There's no alleyway. The alleyway stops at Roadhouse and doesn't continue beyond that. So there's no, we didn't want to put it up front and have it, one of those spots taken away. So we kind of had to make the best of the situation.
So they weren't gonna make the dumpster enclosures underneath the property they bought from us? I don't know if you remember that, but they bought that, and that's where they're gonna put their dumpsters, and now their dumpsters are gonna be in the public right of way, is what I'm assuming.
So part of the access off would be, the plan that was approved though had the lower level being a walk-in cooler freezer. So there wasn't any ability to put it where that vacated land is that we got it. So that
Maybe
was.
I assume that that's what they're gonna do. I thought at one point they were gonna put that there. But again, they're still on public right of way is what they are right now.
They have access off public right of way, yes.
So that building's not on public right of way?
Well, we vacated it almost right up to the curb.
So all those parking stalls we put in are not on city property?
The stalls are,
So is that at the end of the parking, this building going, or is it in the middle of it all?
the dumpster enclosure
Yeah.
is right at, so the deck will end right where the dumpster enclosure starts.
So it's on their property though, for the most part, it's not a parking stall? I thought it looked like it was down in the parking stalls.
Was not on the stall, I mean, there is definitely some right of way that they're accessing to get to it, yes.
I know they access to it, but the building's not on, is what my question.
Well,
Portion of it is?
there's a stake, if you go down there right now, you can see exactly where the Olson Engineering just did a survey, so you can see
Well,
exactly
that's
where.
fine, so, but all that parking we paved is somewhat on their property as well, I'm asking that.
No, the parking we paved is all on our right of way.
Okay, I should go down and look at it, I just looked at it from Main Street and maybe I
Yep.
didn't see it well enough, so, all right, well, that's fine, thank you.
Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, Robert.